set out, and he puts it in 4 broad baskets. So the first is all about competitiveness, striking lots of free trade deals with the rest of the world. TTIP, for example, is key amongst those. Completing the single market, that is fairly uncontroversial. The second basket is about sovereignty, so making sure that ever closer union doesn't apply to all of the EU citizens, and also allowing national parliaments to have more of a say in the EU's decision-making process. The third, and perhaps very interesting one, is all about Eurozone safeguards, so that non-Eurozone countries have some kind of mechanism in place that doesn't allow the Eurozone countries to discriminate against them when it comes to single market rules. And finally, the most contentious one is all about migration and curbing access to welfare here, in the hope of reducing the numbers of EU migrants that come to the UK. As I said, this has already been set out. They're going to discuss it at a political level. It's an important step before a final deal, probably next year.
What happens if Brussels come back to Cameron and say, sorry, no?
Well, the European Council President already set out a letter a few weeks ago saying, we are willing to engage with Cameron on these talks. And I think that recent developments in Europe show that very much the rest of the EU wants to keep the UK on board. We've had the migration crisis, we've had the economic crisis, and a Brexit on top of that, losing one of the strongest economic powers in the EU, I think would just be too much for the EU to stomach. I think they're very willing to seriously engage with Cameron.
Question, UK referendum. When's it going to be held, and what do you think is going to happen?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's what I'm asking.
So before the end of 2017, my guess is that the final deal might be concluded at the February summit next year, in which case I think we're having a referendum in June or September 2016. I think it would be probably unwise to push it all the way into 2017, because then we're going into the national electoral cycles of France and Germany, and the idea of concessions for the UK when you have a national election coming along probably isn't a wise idea.
So one of the theories I've heard is probably the winter, because you see a lot of people movement during the summer, and that could affect actually the outcome. So it could be in the winter. And the result, do you still think it's yes or no?
Well, all the polls show that it's finely balanced. It's on a knife's edge. And I think a poll that we did and released today that shows a massive swing for yes or no really depends on the package itself. So the top line is that the majority of people are undecided, and they will make up their mind once they see what Cameron comes back with.
Do you honestly believe people actually understand these packages? Don't you think in the end of the day, the big swing voters are people that often vote on extremely trivial things? But I don't mean trivial in the sense, I'm saying not about the big package, but about one or two main themes rather than the package.
So the two issues that our poll show were the most contentious was this issue of non-discrimination against non-Eurozone countries. That shifts the balance by 11 percentage points in favor of leaving. And the other one is obviously the issue of migration. This is obviously a contentious issue that's captivated the British public for a long time. So I think if Cameron does not come back with reforms in those two broad areas, he'll have a lot of work trying to convince the public to vote for an in.